Hello there, everyone. Welcome to my lesson today. Uh, Today, I would wish that we look at narratives. It's a continuation of previous lessons, so I want us to look at the features of narratives. So, when I talk about features of narratives, I'm talking about that which makes narratives, not any other genre but narratives. So, first, narratives are timeless. When we say narratives are timeless, we mean that they are not having specific time. There is no specific time stated when the narratives were told. For instance, narratives would begin with long time ago, or it could also begin with once upon a time. So in those two circumstances, we realize that there is no specific time because when you're told once upon a time, actually it is different from when you're told Monday morning. But that's why we say narratives are timeless. Secondly, we look at the convictional formula. Narrative has convictional formula. What do I mean? Convictional formula, I mean opening formula and closing formula. So let's quickly look at opening formula. Opening formula is that which starts the narrative, that which distinguishes a narrator from the audience. And opening formula is often used to call for attention of the audience and also to introduce the narrator. An opening formula is, for example, once upon a time, or long, long time ago, or you can find other narratives starts with there lived a man by the name blah blah blah. Thirdly, we look at the other part of conventional formula, which is another feature that is closing formula. Closing formula marks the end of a narrative. And an example is like, that is the end of my story, or and there goes my story. A narrative has a closing formula to mark the finality of the narration. Uh, close, the closing formula also is said in a falling intonation. When you asked in an exam, how do we say the last line of this narrative? We say with a falling intonation to mark the end of narration. The next we look at element of fantasy. Narratives also have element of fantasy as a feature because in narration is where we find animal characters and human characters all together. And a situation where we have human characters, we have these human characters being given supernatural abilities. These supernatural abilities is what takes us to an imaginary world, wondering how a human being can maybe beat a whole village or something. Also, when animal characters are used, we are told, like, for instance, hare and hyena were cooking, and so on and so forth. So, what is the importance or the effectiveness of use of element of fantasy in narration? The element of fantasy in narration takes us to the imaginary world. Then we have moral lesson. Almost all narratives are have moral lessons. And when we look at moral lesson, actually, we look at what we learn from that particular story. And I want all the students to know that when we learn something, we can't learn it in negative. We learn it in a positive. So when writing a moral lesson, we write it in affirmative sentence or affirmative statement. A moral lesson must be positive. For example, we learn that we should be patient. Let us not say that we learn that we should not be impatient. Another instance, we can also say that we learn that we should always think twice before making a decision. We should not write it that we learn that we should not make rash decisions. So let us avoid negativity when we write the statement on moral lesson. So those basically are the features that differentiates narrative from any other genre of literature. Thank you and welcome again to my next class. Bye.